So I officially ran my first payroll with OnPay, and I've got some thoughts. Some things were surprisingly smooth, whereas there were also a few hiccups that I ran into. But overall, honestly, I'm really impressed. If you're thinking about switching payroll providers, especially going into a new quarter or a new year, this video is for you. Stick around and I'll show you what worked, what you should double check, and what to expect from your very first payroll run in OnPay. Oh, and of course I recorded the entire process, so I'll be sure to show you some of that behind the scenes as we go. If I don't know you, hi, I'm Jamie Trull, CPA and financial literacy coach. And on this channel, I like to give you all of the information you need to stay informed, organized, and profitable in your business finances. So please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you watch this channel, you also know that I love to negotiate the best deals for my audience. So if you watch this and you do decide that OnPay is right for you, please make sure to use my link to sign up because you're gonna get an extra $100 just for using my link. That's jamietrull.com/OnPay. And make sure to stick around until the end because I'm gonna show you a little secret about how to get quicker turnaround times when it comes to your payroll runs. Let's start with the wins. I'm gonna tell you the biggest win of switching to OnPay is that I was matched with a direct onboarding specialist that was there every step of the way. And I will tell you in my experience with payroll companies, sometimes they'll tell you they have great onboarding and that they're gonna be there the whole time, but it's actually really difficult in practice to get a hold of them, and you have to call an 800 number and wait on the line and get a different person every time. And that was absolutely not the experience that I had with OnPay. If you watched my last video, which was all about how I actually signed up for OnPay and walking through that entire process, you'll know that I pretty much immediately got an email from my onboarding specialist. And from that email, we were able to get on a preliminary call where she walked me through every single step of what was going to come and what I needed to do, as well as what they were going to take care of. So I never felt confused. I never felt like I was missing some important step. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do and when. And she didn't just disappear after that preliminary meeting. She actually checked in multiple times to make sure that things were going well and to double check our timing and make sure nothing had changed as far as when my first payroll run was planned to be. And I also appreciated that after everything was moved over into the new system, she confirmed with me that Balance CFO was active and ready to run payroll. And she even gave me a guide to running payroll and also reminded me of some of the important things like how to communicate with my employees and make sure that their bank account information was added and that they had direct deposit enabled and how to invite them to the portal. Not only that, she also called out the fact that because I had an employee moving to a new state, there were some missing tax IDs and things like that that I needed from the new state and gave me instructions on where to find all of that. And as a busy entrepreneur, it really was helpful to have somebody reminding me of everything to make sure nothing was missed. Now, like I showed you in the video that I did previously, I went with the option of actually having OnPay move everything over for me. So it was really cool that they have the option where you can actually give them some read-only access into your system where they can pull all the reports they need to move everything over. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, you absolutely can send them all of those reports yourself, and they have a process to show you exactly what they need and how to pull those reports. But I'll be honest, I'm a little lazy. So I went the way that had me doing the least amount of work. And let me tell you, I'm glad that I did. One of the things that kept me switching payroll providers for so long was the worry that it was going to be a big headache to deal with the switch. But that was not the case at all when it came to switching to OnPay. And the last win in the process that just made this whole thing so much easier is that my onboarding specialist actually got on Zoom with me to run my first payroll. Now, she offered that up and I didn't have to say yes. I could have done it on my own, especially now that I've seen how easy it was. However, it was really nice to have somebody right there with me to make sure that I didn't do anything wrong and that everything was looking as it should before I hit that first pay button. Now, I've got experience in a lot of different payroll solutions, and I've actually moved my own payroll a few times. And I gotta tell you, this was the most seamless experience I've had yet. However, as you know, if you watch this channel much, I like to give balanced reviews. So I also want to tell you about some of the things to watch out for. And some of these are going to apply no matter what payroll solution you're switching to or from. So first and foremost, it's really important to do your own accuracy checks. This is true when you're moving from any system to another system. There are a lot of things that can happen in that translation. So as we were running payroll for the first time with my onboarding specialist, I made sure to pull up the paycheck amounts that I previously had paid from my old system and compared them to the new paycheck amounts that were being paid and calculated out of OnPay. Now, I'll admit this was pretty easy for me to compare given the fact that my entire team is full-time salary. So that means that what they're paid from paycheck to paycheck should not really be changing. So as I was running that payroll for the first time, I compared what the different withholdings were from the last system to the new system, what the employer taxes were, what the employee taxes were, and basically each individual line item to make sure that there weren't any changes I didn't expect. And in that process, I actually did see a few employees that had a slightly different net pay amount that was resulting from a different amount of federal taxes being withheld. Now, again, a great thing about walking through this with an onboarding specialist, she was able to look into this and pretty quickly determine the cause of that differential. And it turns out that some of the withholdings in the new system were slightly lower because some of the married employees that I have weren't marked as having more than one income on their W-4. So that was super quick to go in and toggle that button for those employees, and then everything matched out exactly. So that's why I say it's really important to always be checking, no matter what system we're talking about, when we're moving things from one system to another, especially when there's human error involved. Things can happen, so you want to make sure that you're checking it that first time. And thankfully, in this case, it was not an error of how things were being calculated in OnPay. It was just one small thing that was carried over slightly differently on the employee's W-4. And the other reason you want to make sure you do a quick check like this before you run your first payroll in a new system is because if you don't check it, your employees certainly will notice it. So in this case, it's definitely helpful to be proactive. Now, the second watch out with switching to OnPay that I noticed is that in my old system, I actually had a pretty quick 2-day turnaround for when I had to submit payroll and when it was paid. Now, that's because I had been with that other payroll provider for a while, and so they had allowed me to be on that shorter time frame. But switching to a new system, just like with banking, means that from a fraud perspective, they're probably going to default you to a longer period of time. Now, the reason they do this is really more around security, especially for brand new accounts. Until you have a history showing them that you typically will have enough money in your account to cover your payroll, they're going to default you to a longer period of time. That said, thankfully with OnPay, there is a way to reduce that time. So if you want a shorter turnaround from when you have to run payroll to when it's paid, maybe you're someone like me who can sometimes procrastinate running payroll, you can actually request a shorter turnaround time. So new clients can opt to undergo a review process that involves giving their last 2 months' bank statements for review before approval. Again, the goal is just to support that you have appropriate cash on hand to be able to pay your payroll obligations. So I submitted this request and I was approved, and now my turnaround time is only 2 days. Now, a third watch out, and this one was actually a really big one for me, related to 401k contributions. Now, this may or may not apply to you. If you don't have a 401k, it's going to be a little easier to make the switch. But if you do, I'm actually going to be doing a video that walks through more of these considerations in the future. So I made the decision to also switch my 401k provider from the old one that was through my payroll company to a new one that would integrate a little bit better with OnPay. And because I'm in the middle of making that switch, it can take a few months to be effective. That meant for this payroll run that OnPay couldn't automate the ACH transfer to move people's 401k contributions into their actual 401k. So ultimately, what OnPay did was still calculate and withhold the amounts that were going to be related to these 401k contributions. And now there's a liability on my balance sheet where I need to go make those contributions into the plan myself. So that means for now, just in this changeover time period, which is probably going to be a couple of months, it means that I'm just going to have to make a manual transfer into the 401k each pay period. Now, if you're wondering how the heck you do that, the great thing was that OnPay gave me step-by-step directions on exactly how to do it. So I wasn't left guessing and wondering what the heck I was supposed to do next. Now, if you want to see the full rundown of switching my 401k, definitely make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to do a whole video specifically on that subject coming up soon. So overall, would I recommend OnPay to small business owners who are looking to switch payroll systems? So far, the answer is a definite yes. Because of the actual white glove onboarding, their responsive support, and how easy and intuitive it was to actually run payroll, I'm really excited to keep going with them. But like any software switch, make sure to go into it with your eyes wide open. Double check your withholdings, know your payroll timing, and have a plan for those manual steps like switching 401k providers. Now, if you haven't been watching, this video is part of a whole series about switching payroll providers because when I looked out there for resources on this, there wasn't really a lot that I could find. In the first video in this series, I shared some of the myths and the misconceptions that I had heard and maybe even had myself that previously kept me from switching payroll providers. And I also talk about what convinced me to finally make the move. In the second video, I showed you exactly how to sign up for OnPay and get the best price, of course. It's going to be using my link, by the way, jamietrull.com/OnPay. So you can check out that video next if you haven't seen it yet. And if you're ready to make that switch to OnPay, make sure to use my link below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.